I love that argument because that's the beauty of the idiocy of the internet. I fucking hate it, and I hope I can. I'm all right to swear.
Yeah, you can fucking swear on the podcast.
Yeah, because it is a joke. It's a joke. People write these articles just to make a confirmation bias point of view, and they're fucking idiots.
Welcome to the Upside Strength Podcast, your number one resource for all things fitness and performance in Switzerland. Today I'm chatting with Sam Portland, who's a strength and conditioning consultant based in London, England. Sam, thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, man. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your background, how you came into the field, and what you've been up to for the last 10 years.
Wow, yeah. So I'll make this short and sweet because, this is the bit that usually everyone skips. So I've been working sort of at the kind of elite level for, like you said, the last 10 years. Started growing in my career playing rugby, broke my leg when I was 19. Dream was over to kind of make a living out of rugby, and then decided, to qualify as a personal trainer, and then started coaching pretty much. I'd originally coached a lot of rugby. My first actual coaching experience was when I was 13 years old. I coached a whole rugby summer camp as an assistant coach. So
nice.
I'd always been sort of coaching, and the more you learn, the more you grow, and you realize other experiences play a big part to where you were, to who you are and how you've got to where you are. And then I ended up going back to university, did a human performance degree at Brunel in London. Off the back of that, accidentally ended up observing James Smith, the thinker, for a couple of weeks, which then set me up for an interview for an internship at London Wasps with Keir Wellenflat, who then became my boss for a little while. And then I worked my way up and had 4 years at Wasps, a majority of the time within the first team. I think within 18 months I was in a first team role at Wasps. I was leading the sports science and rehab there. Then I resigned in October 2015. I walked from that job because there were just some things that I wasn't happy with in terms of the leadership around and a few other bits and pieces. Then July the following year, and this is the beauty, I'd always worked for myself. So I just went back to working for myself. And then in July, I worked for Ealing. I signed with Ealing Trailfinders in the championship for 2 years. Re-signed for another 2 years. 6 months into it, I got let go because I challenged player welfare. And I was trying to take care of some people, which that didn't go down too well. And then from then, in the October, I get a phone call. Alex Gray's coming back from the Atlanta Falcons and needs an S&C coach. So from the January to the March, then I took him on. We've done the same again this year, and in all that time, I picked up my coach mentorship programs, all my education stuff, writing ebooks, manuals. I'm writing a book at the moment on my Speedgate golf. And all the paradigms around that. So that's pretty much as quickly as I can get through 10 years for you.
I like it, man. A couple points I want to come back on. You said you started coaching rugby before you moved on to strength and conditioning. What pushed you to make that switch? Why didn't you stay in rugby as such?
So basically, I fell in love with S&C when I picked up a barbell when I was 17. There was an old player at the rugby club I was at. He was an ex-England international. He took me under his wing when I was 17 to start lifting weights because they wanted me playing first team there. So, and from then I just fell in love with it. And then what really broke down and understood that barrier is because I broke my leg and I had no rehab. So I ended up rehabbing my own broken leg.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was like, wow, I was going to go and study sports therapy. And then I realized that you can be a physical performance coach, not a therapist or a physio. So I was like, well, yeah, let's go, let's get it, let's get after it, and then that was it. The rest is history.
So you mentioned James Smith as one of your influences coming up. Who have been your other
Yeah.
major influences coming up as an S&C coach?
So yeah, James was huge for me, really, because I was really wet behind the ears when I first met him, and like, funnily enough, through Gudango, he was coaching like 10 minutes from my parents' house, and so he was massive, as you can imagine.
Yes.
And you know, big influences, definitely Verkhoshansky in terms of the actual true application of physical preparation. And then, you know, obviously having Keir as my first boss, you know, very influential in my career. You got the, like, Buddy, definitely, Charlie Francis, Jonas Dodu for speed, Dan Pfaff, and a lot of the coaches that their world isn't about what they do. That's a huge thing for me. And you know, big reductionist thinkers. Jeff Moyer is a really nice guy to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Will Wayland, powering through. You know, a lot of my peer group. You know, I'm learning from everyone all the time, all different things. But the big thing that stuck out for me, one of the most impressionable phrases that James Smith said to me, he said, when you can apply your coaching philosophy to a carpenter, you're actually on the right path. And so I call it holistic data-driven training. So use the numbers to train the person, to inform training the person. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I pick and pull from anyone and everything. You know, I don't care who you are. If you're doing something right, I want to learn.
So you mentioned that quote from James Smith. What other things did you learn while you said you could observe what he did for a couple of weeks? What are the main things that jumped out at you that maybe you thought you knew previously coming in, and that kind of completely changed the view of what you had in regards to performance and coaching?
The application of true plyometrics was really big. The application of power speed drills in a physical prep program for team sport athletes, and the role there was huge. And just general, like, he introduced me to Gudango's, well, no, Gudango put it in a pull-up article, but it was his modified table of Preplin's chart with the low, medium, and high volume. And actually then he started talking to me about training residuals, and then things just started falling into place. You know, I would always, like, from an egotistical point of view, you know, think about training from my own point of view. And I never really had a true appreciation for speed. Like, I'm a winger and I was always fast. So I was like, well, you should just be fast, until we started really talking and conversing about speed. And then, you know, it all started falling into place, because I knew if I got stronger, I would slow down and feel sluggish, because I'm a highly tendon driven guy, you know. And, you know, I do practice what I preach. I broke over 10 meters per second on the track and stuff like that. And so, you know, understanding and putting all those things together really informed my practice. There was a few big light bulb moments there with him.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about, actually, coming back to your point on running drills and power speed drills. You've talked about using running drills as disguised plyos in coaching sessions, which is actually something that I've ended up doing over the last year. We end up every warm up with just some basic power speed drills with the guys. And, you know, 6 months later, the coach came to me and said, what did you do to them? Why are they so, you know, quick on their feet, explosive? I said, we just did 6 months of, you know, 5 minutes twice a week of power speed drills, and then we did some sprint work. That's really what it is. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because there is that argument right now of, are running drills useful? Do they transfer to running? So what's your take on all that?
Yeah, I love that argument, because that's the beauty of the idiocy of the internet. I fucking hate it, and I hope I can. I'm all right to swear.
Yeah, you can fucking swear on the podcast.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because it is a joke. It's a joke. People write these articles just to make a confirmation bias point of view, and they're fucking idiots. So, because what they don't understand, and this is my biggest argument, and I've got good groundings for it, is that plyometric running power speed drills are discrete means of plyometrics. And when you specifically talk about the journey of a team sport athlete and their training evolution, they've missed huge gaps of physical preparation. And by that, I mean, they're just GPP monsters. That's all they are. And they've never, but also they're weight room GPP. So they've not even gone through specific plyometric tissue preparation. They've not gone through all these areas of ballistic tissue preparation. And so within that, you fail to realize the true potency, because if any strength and conditioning coach worth his weight understands the level of dose effectiveness to training qualification. So when you've got a group of rugby players that have the only speed that they've done is running fast with someone blowing a whistle, then the conversation needs to be brought back 2 to 3 chapters of that book, because in order to prepare an athlete to run fast, you have to prepare the body to run fast. So the reason why the plyometric effect of power speed drills is so important, because it's creating general capacity to perform speed. So within that, you're getting hundreds and thousands of contacts accumulated, building up good muscle tendon junction stiffness, good compliance. And then also, irrespective of that, you've got the motor control elements of it, because speed is a highly complex skill. So within that, you're touching the rhythm, timing, coordination, synchronization, tendon compliance, stretch reflex activity, stretch shortening activity, Golgi tendon organ firing rates. And so I think if you can argue that they're not useful, then you probably need to go back and understand like what you're trying to do for your athletes more than anything. And I used my methodology, the one that I've developed, and I know that it works, because I know where I need to enter the conversation with my athletes. Power speed drills become their training drills until they become preparation drills, until they become recovery drills. So it goes through a whole evolution of qualification. And with that, and I challenge, the guys that I mentor and stuff, and I challenge them, go do 3 to 5 sets of 20-meter extensive running drills, ankle A, B, egg crackers, high knees, butt kicks, 5 or 6 exercises, 20 meters, walk back, do 3 to 5 sets on 2 minutes rest, and tell me how you feel. Just tell me how you feel. And lo and behold, everyone's got some very aware muscles for a few days. And you think if you're not touching that in your general prep, how are you expecting an athlete to tolerate? And this is where it goes upstream. This is where it goes to your end goal, because everyone's like, oh, I want my guys to run fast, but they're teaching them like how to squat at the beginning, which has no real correlation to it, because what you need an athlete to do is to be able to handle sprinting over 9.5 meters per second 6 times in 6 minutes. And if you can't complete an extensive plyometric circuit of drills, you're going to blow a hammy at the back end, or you're going to get a tendinopathy, or you're just going to flare up and burn out. And then again, as an S&C coach, you probably lose your job.
And so where do those...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes 100% sense. Where do those power speed drills fit into your overall model of speed development? Is it kind of the first step, or the steps before that? And then where do you progress it from there?
Okay, so how these drills fit within my development model is, like I said, everything evolves. The role of a training stimulus based on its effectiveness. So whenever you do something new, it's incredibly potent. So it's got a great effect. It yields a high level of transfer at the beginning. And then it actually gets relegated. So like I said, first and foremost, they become motor skill and tissue preparation drills and exercises. So they become like one of your go-tos. whereas then they actually become preparation to move up our task complexity scale. So if I was to break this down into a really simple nutshell, is you've got, from an acceleration point of view, take an acceleration model, you've got like your basic warm-up, you've got your power speed drills. So power speed drills for preparation. So as an early athlete, so power speed drills for preparation, so long rest, lots of coaching. Then you've got your isometric shape and positions, like on your wall drills, and you've got overcoming variations and yielding variations that you use. And then you've got your up to 6-step push out work, which is where we focus on projection first, switching second, timing third, and then obviously fourth, ground contact effectiveness. And then on the back end, you'll do tissue capacity and preparation. Is then your drills come back in as axillary movements. They become extensive means, and that's when you can chuck in jumps. So then everything if you've got a system of development and a stream, I call it drill stacking. So if you say you've got 6 drills, you'll work drill 1 to 3 at the beginning, then you'll relegate 1 and bring in drill 4. You'll relegate drill 2, bring in drill 5, and then you'll come back through. So then you're cycling up through this qualification stream. If I've described that well enough for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like, and you can, and even within power speed drills themselves, there's obviously levels of complexity that you can play with, in the sense that a drill that you might start with a kid might be like the very base level of it. But when you're working with an elite athlete, there's still drills that are relevant, but they're definitely not going to be on the same or necessarily the same level, or maybe even the focus points they're going to be talking about or looking at are going to be different, right?
Yeah. And again, whenever I get a new athlete, this is what I love about having a more robust system or strategy. I hate the way S&C coaches use systems. We need systems. What we need is fluid strategies. So because, we like this, it has to go in this box, it has to go in that box. It's very fixed in our mindset. But when you've got a strategy, you can deviate from that. So within our power speed and our team sport sprint preparation strategy that we use, my academy kids that start at 9 years old, and then my new pros that I get in, they all start in the same place. Because I need to see, obviously with the young kids, where their starting point is. But with a new sprinter coming to me, or a new rugby player that we've got to teach to sprint, I need to know where the gap is. I need to understand where the gap is first. Because if I don't understand where the gap is, then I'm going to miss adaptation. And then I'll miss it twice, because I won't get what I can get out of the easy stuff. And I'm all about making life easy for myself and for my athletes. And then till we get to the time where we start needing to use more complicated stuff. So case in point, real example, this guy, Alex Gray, that I'm working with, we've nearly broke 10 meters per second, and we've only just started doing resisted accelerations. So, where most people's starting point would be resisted accelerations, so we've just started doing it.
So are you saying that you've stuck to the fundamentals for long enough that you've kind of exhausted what you could get out of them before? It's like when Keir talks about robbing the athlete twice by using means of preparation that are too advanced for them. Is it in that kind of framework?
Yeah. And because, like you can't prescribe like traditional models to these big guys, and I'm learning more and more and more. Like I've got, Alex is 115 kilos and 6'6", nearly hitting 10 meters per second. I've got another guy, I've got a prop who's 5'10", 120 kilos, broke 9 meters per second. A back row, 6'4", 120 kilos, 9.28 meters per second, all inside 35 meters. So you're changing the game. You're breaking rules that these bodies shouldn't be able to do. The back row came to me in 10 weeks, went from 8.1 to 9.28.
Right.
And And so, you know, what you're getting from just these fundamentals and basics is that you need to understand their potency, because for every level of speed, and you've got that change of velocity on moment arms and velocities on MTJs, if an athlete gets 0.01 meters per second faster, that's going to be exponentially increased around the joint arms. So you can still do the same thing over and over again, but if he's just doing it faster, it then becomes more potent. So you're using his own rate of development against him to make him better, and in continually being better, because you understand the effect of what's going on.
Yeah,
and that's why strategy trumps the system.
In that context of coaching speed, for those that maybe are not familiar with the speed aspect of things, as speed goes up, it's like the weight going up on a bar. And so the effect is going to be, you know, incrementally bigger and bigger and bigger. So as he reaches bigger speeds, even with maybe quote unquote simple exercises, the stimulus is still there to make him keep going faster.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Like the easy rule of thumb is like if someone's traveling at 10 meters per second, their legs are moving at 20.
Right. Because it has to come back in front of them.
Yeah. You know, so, and then that's like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense now. Like, that's why. And, you know, we got, I don't know if you've seen on my Instagram, but I mean, Alex did a floated heel double or treble, hand supported split squat with 200 kilos.
I saw that.
And the bar flew off his back. And everyone's like, what strength training program are you using? I was like, a bloody good speed one. You know, a sprint training program, because you're not going to, and that's the disconnect that you've got to keep teaching athletes all the time, is that he got that result that we find in the gym is because of the power speed work we've done on the track, because he's moving and hitting loads much heavier on the track, and he's just supporting them in the gym.
Yeah, it's for me, the parallel is gymnasts. When you look at what they do, you know, with their body weight, and then you put a barbell in their hand and they can fucking overhead press like body weight and a half without blinking an eye. Yeah. And you wonder why. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And it's the same with the lower body, because they're actually prepared for those forces and velocities, right? For people who don't know, ground contact time for elite sprinters, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 4 to 5 times body weight on each ground contact time. And that's, for the elite guys, it's around 100 milliseconds or below.
Well, yeah, so 5 to 7 during acceleration and up to 12 times at top end.
Right.
So it's like, it's a monster. And like because I did gymnastics as a kid as well. And they're the masters of tissue preparation. Yeah. Because of, you know, a gymnastic conditioning circuit is unbelievable. It's it's tough. It's real tough. And because they understand that, you know, you've got to build that endurance into the body to tolerate the forces. And where the disconnect comes with the team sport athletes is that they think that you need to find the force in the gym to tolerate the forces. You don't. You just need to prepare the body to handle the forces. And so that's why we live in this world where 3 sets of 5 is a go-to weight training regime for every exercise under the sun in the gym, and it's not athlete preparation. Yeah, it's rubbish.
I definitely want to come back to that point and the role that strength holds for you in the speed preparation. But I wanted to come back to something you said before. When you train kids that are, you said 9 years old in the academy, all the way to you know, pro players that are currently enrolled with pro teams. What is your approach when you get someone on board, whether it's a new kid or a new, you know, elite athlete? Do you have the same approach? Is it kind of a whole kind of coaching aspect? Is it more the drills first and then we run? How do you come to those different, I guess, age groups and different levels, and do you coach them differently or similarly?
Yeah, so this is what's quite interesting is obviously, you know, the young kids, and it's all about what leverage you can create. It's all about leverage. And so with the young kids, we give them a training program because they need leverage of ownership. And they're like, oh, I've got a gym program. And so the strategy there for them is that they actually have so much fun filling out their program, and they love it. They love it. Whereas conversely, with a top level guy, they just need me to take care of that for them. That's with them, and educating them to that like higher level. But in terms of like a coaching strategy, my biggest thing is just bring them into the conversation. Bring anyone and everyone into the conversation, because the way I work, and I'm very lucky, is that I had to go and start making my own money coaching before I coached professionally, like quote unquote, in professional sport. So I always treated all my players like they were paying me personally. And this is a problem that a lot of coaches have, because if you're swearing at someone and they're paying you, they're not going to be paying you for much longer. And so you're putting someone in Fat Club, they're not going to pay you for that. So it's about creating a relationship of understanding, and the most important understanding, and this is a huge gripe of mine, where we forget what coaching is all about. Coaching is a coercive art form in which it combines teaching, pedagogy, where what you're trying to do is impart information to another person to allow them to adopt what you're trying to give them, to then make them better. And that's what you're trying to do, because if you don't do that, then they're never actually gonna get there. And even with these young kids, I can't say a few things that I say to my lads, but we talk to them exactly the same way. 9-year-old, and ask him how he transforms in the same way that you get a 28-year-old professional athlete who's been in the game for 8-9 years. It's surprising how little someone asks him how he's feeling. It's so transferable. And in terms of what and this is, again, if you go further into like an implementation strategy, I struggle with concepts of play, whilst there needs to be play, and playful activity, 100%, but that's what the game's for. That's where you play your game, right? So, and if you don't have enough time, you've got short periods of time with these athletes. That's worse. An actual coach needs to come to the fore. You need to create a lot more frontal brain activity so they can process and take it away with them, so they come back next time, have actually learned indirectly. So, whilst my kids in the summer, we play a lot of games for warm up. Even with Alex, I play games with him for warm up. Because they're all about, for me, they're not about learning by doing, they're showing me what they've learned. And that's the difference, whether I can see whether the coaching that I've done is actually working. And we test and retest in these small controlled environments. But if someone says to me, I've got 20 minutes, I'm not going to waste my time playing chase. I'm going to be dialing into detail with, especially these top guys that make their living, but then also with the young kids, I'm going to give them education. I'm going to impart information to them, and it's just all about having finding the right time to do so.
Do you think there might as well be an element of, depending on which level you play at and which development level the players are at, the need for specific preparation versus, let's say, physical conditioning through a game of rugby or through a certain setting of a rugby game, like a 3-on-3 or a 5-on-5 with certain constraints, in the sense that could you just use that more for the kids because they'll get better through those games, but then when you get to the higher levels, maybe that's not enough anymore to elicit adaptations that you're after?
Yeah, no, exactly. There is definitely that argument and that relationship with it, definitely. But and we can counter that by saying that if a guy's wearing his international jersey for his team, he's good enough at the game. The coaches need to allow that athlete then to just do what he does.
Right.
and get them ready for the right time. And because that's all that matters. And I had some experience working in track and field. I worked with a group for a year, and they just got to be ready twice a year. And that was a huge thing that I understood about, took that to team sport, is that my job's useless if I can't get them ready for the right time.
Right.
You know, and if you're looking at the skill of catch pass and executing strategies of play and systems of play, it's a coach's responsibility to allow someone if they've got to the big stage, just to do it at the right time, and then deal with the pressure of doing it at the right time. And again, and then you take that from an S&C point of view, speed preparation. I need my athlete to be able to drop into a cut in a World Cup final and nail it. You know, all the work should have been done by then. And it's just about being prepared and being able to execute at the right time. And that's how I don't know if you've seen it. I use this model of learn, load, and execute.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an evolutionary process. So you've got 3 circles: learn, load, execute. Learn and load have a circle, and that's kind of cyclic. And load and execute is cyclic. And then the whole system is cyclic. So you're learning something to then load the skill or load the physical capacity to then figure out how and test whether they can execute it. For example, with speed, first level of execution of a skill for me would be in acceleration, or I use the speed gate golf. Can they execute their switch mechanics to run 10 meters in 2 seconds? Now, we both know it's very slow, but can they execute it? Because pressure's on. And then we scale up all these psychological paradigms with the physical paradigms. It's like, right, well then now I say to Alex, like, break 9 meters per second for me, please. You got 30 meters to do it. Bang. There you go. Job done. Because they know how to do it. And that's coaching for me.
What's the role of strength in speed for you? We hear a lot of, it does transfer at certain levels, it doesn't transfer past a certain level. So how do you frame it in your overall model?
So realistically, what we're trying to do is understand like angular kinematics, really, aren't we? So, you know, if you just look at the two, you look at a squat versus an acceleration, look at the 2 exercises. That'll tell you how much it transfers. But what does transfer is the some of the, and I get this wrong every time, either the intramuscular coordination, so the ability to fire motor units. That's what transfers. Spinal stress. That's what transfers. You know, big loads, compressive forces through the spine. And I look at this as a really simple way. We lift weights so we can tolerate jumping, so we can jump, so we can tolerate sprinting. That's it.
So the squat is a GPP exercise for sprinting.
Yeah. And it's, you know, use it and get rid of it as quick as you can. Like I don't, for most of the part, like I don't back squat any of my guys. I don't back squat any of my guys. When I was at Ealing, I gave them the option. I was like, what lift do you want to do? No, it's GPP. Like, what's your favorite lower body lift? Someone said trap bar. Someone said split squat. Someone said this. All right, do it. I don't give a fuck. Do it. You know, I need you. They're like, well, what's my 1RM? I don't give a fuck. I don't care what your 1RM is, because it doesn't really matter. You know, I always joke that the 2 numbers I care about are sprint PBs and signing bonuses, because that's all that matters. You know, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I mess around. And the role that I'm in now, you know, I do work for myself, and I'm massively for the player. So I always call myself the Jerry Maguire of strength and conditioning. So that's why I like signing bonuses, and the S&C coach likes fast times, and that's it. That's it. And that's all you need.
your point on strength makes a lot of sense from the speed standpoint. Now, would you still try and have a bit more influence on the strength development of, say, prop or a front rower that might actually need a little bit more of that absolute strength in the game?
Yeah. So, again, it's about where you're entering the conversation with an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Where is their level? Where is their level? And 99 times out of 100, if you put a robust hip conditioning program to a team sport athlete, you'll transform them.
Mm.
Because I've had to rehab a lot of hernias. I've had my own hernia. I had osteitis pubis, groin. I've had to rehab loads of groin issues. And the moment you start, because I talk about the hips, is the way I talk about it's the center of the universe of the body. The center of your mass sits in the cradle of your hips. So if you've got weak hips, you're not doing anything. You're wasting time and money all the time. And so if you can't connect your shoulder to your foot, if you can't work those sling systems well enough, then you're going to be losing. I know I've seen a prop who's the strongest in the gym, couldn't move on the field. Taught him how to pulley walk, and I shit you not, taught him how to pulley walk, and he became a better scrummager.
What do you attribute that to?
Just unbelievable. Just being able to coordinate, like just that next level of just sophistication of his body. And this guy was a professional rugby player. He was at the big stage. And this is the problem that we get, everyone's like, my guys aren't athletes, they're rugby players. Oh, come on, mate. Like, shut your fucking mouth. They are athletes and they play rugby. Like, what are we trying to achieve? Because you see it on the internet. Like, for me, my mission, a prop that busts a line and is fast should not be abnormal. Shouldn't be abnormal. Everything looks like he's fucking Santa Claus, but he's a good athletic rugby player. Long are the days of props that just scrummage. Yes, you still need scrummaging experts, like your tight head. It's the cornerstone of your whole rugby team. However, can we just make him run a bit better? Can we, because if he can, this is again, like, if this athlete can then actually coordinate and synchronize his limbs better, then we can expose him to acceleration as a power development tool. Like, I was out with Justin Kavanagh in Washington. I don't know if you know Coach Cav. You know Justin Kavanagh?
By name.
Yeah, so he's done some work. Like, he works with some top guys. He's worked with like Johan Blake and stuff like that. And he had one of his soccer guys in. Excuse me. And they did block starts. He did block starts with his soccer guys. And I thought about it, and I was like, fuck, that's so clever. That's so clever. Because it's the ability to turn on, just go from static to dynamic. It's a very specific training tool. I was like, he had obviously spent, they had long off season and stuff, so he spent time teaching them how to block start and stuff like that. And then someone would say, well, isn't that a waste of time? Well, no, it's a great use of time, because once you get there, you're then doing loaded block drives. It's like, well, does it get, in order of specificity, we're hitting that gap so hard, and we can milk so much out of it, because for every level of speed or development or power that we get, we can then load sub-maximally off that to develop more in a more specific way, with less effort, less energy, less time, and more specificity. It's economy. So I was like, go on.
Yeah, those first couple steps, like you said, knowing how to go from not moving to moving fast, and that can make, in the first couple steps, you can make the difference. And then if you think about the speeds that you're moving at, when you start running into someone, now you're slowing down, but you can still move with that added load of, someone trying to take you down, or someone, trying to grab your short or whatever. All those things are infinitely more specific to the game of rugby than squatting heavy or deadlifting heavy or stuff like that.
Oh, 100%. And if you actually be clever, like if you go back and you look at, everyone will know there's a guy in their team that's a great ball carrier, can carry in contact well, right? Go and look at the joint angles of the shins and the thighs when they carry in contact, and tell me it doesn't look like upright acceleration. So let's get really good at it.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about that. What came to mind was Mbappe, I think, a soccer player, and somebody did a little montage, freeze frames on a run that he did with the ball. So he was running with the ball, pushing it forward. But if you froze on the the right frames, his shapes were what you're looking for in a sprint. So not only can the guy sprint really fast, but he can do it with the ball, attached to his foot essentially, and that makes a huge difference on the field of play. And like you said, assume the shapes that you want to see in an acceleration with a ball in hand, with people trying to take you down in rugby. That's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, 100%. And people just complicate the issue, because then they'll go, well, you don't sprint statically in rugby. It's like, but how many times you find yourself in a static position? A lot. And then if you know the difference between your step counts and where you are in terms of your, acceleration curve and gear management, and we talk about gear management all the time. If you know that, then it doesn't matter. If I start my guys statics like 90% of the time, because I know I'm training a certain stimulus that will transfer. Can I overcome my body weight really, really fast and then keep pushing it forward really, really hard? It's going to transfer. If I want them to accelerate like they would in a game, I'm going to get them to play a fucking game. Do you know what I mean?
It makes a lot of sense. It's funny because this year I started integrating more kind of running starts and different, maybe a shuffle before an acceleration. But what you said makes a lot of sense, in the sense that a stop start will transfer to all of those things, because you're already moving and you're already essentially at a certain speed, and you can pick that up wherever you are in your acceleration curve. But it doesn't necessarily work in reverse, where if you start at even jogging 2-3 meters per second, it doesn't transfer to starting from scratch and having, like you said, to apply the force really, really quickly to overcome inertia, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's all physics. It all just goes back to basic physics. And that's where, people, want a secret sauce. They want the secret formula, want this, we want that. It's like, well, the secret is knowing when to stay put. Is knowing when just to hit the fundamentals and keep hitting the fundamentals. Appreciate the boring, because that's what coaching is. It's understanding the journey. It's not you're not there to entertain yourself. Pornhub's for that, right?
That makes a lot of sense. So, going back a little bit into this, I've heard you say before that strength and conditioning is like a teenager going through puberty. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So, because it's such a young industry, and I've not been in it for long enough. It's such a young field. It's still really finding its way. And you've got, there's this gap. Obviously, there's a huge gap between a lot of the research and the actual coaching side of it. But then also, it's like human beings, we're just not evolved to it. So it is like a kid going through puberty, because you're just getting a fucking hard on for everything all the time. It's like this new thing, that new thing. It's like, it's like when you're 13 years old and a girl walks past you with nice perfume, like you've got to sit down for 3 hours. That is literally like what strength and conditioning, as an analogy to me at the moment, it's like there's just everyone's looking for this, and fancy sells, doesn't it? And that's what everyone's looking for, and we've just not realized, well, first and foremost, we don't get paid enough to care as much as we do, and then also we're not good enough to think we're as good as we are. And people may not like me saying that, but it's true. It's true, because at the end of the day, I love what I do, but at the end of the day, I'm working with international athletes, and they're going to be there anyway, with or without me. What I give them as a coach is very, they do get the results, and yeah, that's fine. But, we're the backseat driver in the program. Sometimes we're in the fucking boot. And our ego and our own need for self-importance clouds that all the time. Because we just want to stick bands on something. Or we just want to, do you know what I mean? We just want to find this new tool and whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I see it. And your listeners may not like that, but I started doing my best work when I stopped giving a shit about it, and I just started coaching, and the rest falls into place. Like, a couple of my guys like, oh, I don't want to do that. All right, fine, don't. Doesn't matter. We'll find another way. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I need my guys and even my kids and everything just to first and foremost enjoy themselves, but at the same time not think that I'm taking it all too seriously. I respect them and take it seriously enough. But God, we're not saving the world, and we're definitely not changing the world.
Yeah, putting us back into our place a little bit here. You talked about egos. What for you is what's the relationship for you? And from what you said in your short bio, you've been through a few experiences of such. What is the impact of the politics and the egos going on around staff members in different teams, regardless of the level? What's the impact of that on sports performance as a whole? How far are we from the actual potential that is maybe available if all things were run in a way that is optimal?
Oh, we're so far off, mate. We are way off. And the problem is that coaches don't do enough work on themselves. And as people, we don't do enough work on ourselves to then understand. There's people that walk around there. You've got very conscious thinkers, you've got very conscious people, and you've got very unconscious people. And there aren't enough conscious thinkers, because if there were, it would be a lot easier. Because ego will get you down. And this is why, I resigned from my dream job, and I got fired from a job because my personal standards were higher. And within that, I learned a lot about where the profession is, because, Guadango always says, like, we're not actually that far from a chromosome point of view of chimps throwing shit at a wall, and if you can see people do that in their verbal dialogue, whether they're not throwing poo, but they might as well be. And because everyone needs to validate themselves all the time, and they're fighting over training minutes, and like, how much is enough? Who knows? But we live in this world where just because we have time, we have to fill it. And where we are and what I'm excited about going into my next project is that I'm going to do things incredibly differently. And you know, I've been very outspoken about a lot of my views, and I'm actually putting myself on the line and going back in to try and change it. I got nothing to lose, but we, as an industry, like I said, we need to let go of what we think we know, let go of what we do know, and just exist in what we see and how we work with other people and how we just navigate it, if that makes sense. Because that's where the journey's done. That's where the money is. Like, if you go back, and this is where, like another part, like, don't get me on stoicism and in the modern world, and like that's another S&C thing. It's like, we've got to be stoic. No, you fucking idiot, you don't. Like, you've got to self-optimize as a human being, and you can't, like all these famous stoic people had a hard life. You've got an easy life. It's really easy, you know. So we kind of we do this huge disconnect in what we think we do versus what we actually do, versus how we go about business. And then also, the most important, if there's any coach out there that's actually had coach burnout, I've had it 2 or 3 times. We fail to take care of ourselves. And if we don't 100% like optimize ourselves as someone who's trying to help someone else, then if you're running on 60%, then you're not even going to be able to give that 60% to someone else for that limited time. I know that's bounced around. That's how my head works, but that bounced around a lot. But that's kind of how the ego will fuck us, basically.
No, that makes a lot of sense, man. So from your point of view, and moving kind of a little bit deeper into that conversation, how do you, from a more of an organization standpoint, rather than just the S&C coach, how do you create an environment that's conducive to performance and for the bettering of the athletes themselves? Because at the end of the day, that's our job, is to make them better. It's not about us. So how do we create that at an organizational level?
All right. So the key question that so I'm massive into well-being and optimization. I do loads of my own personal work. I've got like a therapist and stuff, a performance coach, see twice a week. And the one question that always comes up, which is like the key question, it's like, in a perfect world, what would it look like? And then you just let someone talk. In a perfect world, what would it look like? Because then you understand, and then this is the thing as well. If you let someone speak for long enough, they'll reveal their true intentions. So if you have someone in front of you, ask them, well, in a perfect world, what do you want? From an organizational level, like you've got to talk to the director of rugby, or you've got to talk to the captain, you've got to talk to a player, have this conversation. What would you want in a perfect world? What does this mean to you? And then all of a sudden, you'll start having a conversation. You'll start having meaningful practice. You'll start, everyone talks about relationships. Relationships are really important in professional sport, in team sport, but yet we have Fat Club. Yet we still punish people with fitness. That is not a level playing field. The guy that plays the game is more important than the guy that's telling them or trying to get them to play the game better. And we lose sight of that as an organizational point of view. The guy that's on the field is the most important. The guy off the field with a clipboard and a whistle that's pissing everyone else off is a dickhead, and needs to know that you are actually down-regulating this environment to the point of which you create resentment and people don't want to go to work. And also, you've got to understand the story and the fairy tale of these people. I'm a big believer in stories, and you grow up, you want to play for England. You grow up, you want to be a professional athlete. You want the accolades. You want all of those things, and then you get there, and you've got some guy just breathing down your neck, telling you what to do all the time, and then that's not going to allow you to be good. That's not going to allow you to have a constructive, healthy relationship. I say to, even with Alex and all my athletes, if I'm getting it wrong, call me out. Tell me this is not right. This is not right. We're not doing this. Is not right. Okay. All right. Cool. Why? How? Humanize everything.
Humanize everything, and then you'll be all right. And have fun, like literally have fun. There's a huge disconnect that I find between preparation for the game and then playing the game in the week. So classic team run, we get it right. Doesn't matter if they don't get it right on a Thursday, because they play the game in 2 days' time. They don't understand the psychology of failure and rehearsal and practice. And because scoring it, like, this is the thing in team runs and as well, it's like, you know, allowing them to score the try it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You know, like you're not going to get to your end goal, which is success. And the success of a team. I'm reading a great book actually, where by Robin Sharma, called "The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO," and he makes a really good point about the how everything in this world is a product of energy and a product of energy. And third law will dictate equal and opposite reactions. So apply that into team sport preparation. Within the week, you need to find enough failures so you can create success. Whereas we're so scared of getting it wrong that we always have to create an artificial environment to get it right. Well, you know when it's right, but how do you navigate when it's wrong? So from an organizational point of view, you need to be looking in to your people and the guys that you work with, and say, in a perfect world, what does being a rugby player look like to you? In a perfect world, what does a coach look like to you? How do we get you there? What do you need to feel good? How much training do you need to do? Just because everyone goes Monday, double day Tuesday, off Wednesday, double day Thursday, team run Friday, or Monday to Wednesday, 2 days off, who knows? But at least ask the question, because then you brought them into the conversation. There's too much of it. I feel there's too much of a dictatorship. And yes, there's 50 people in an organization. You could counter that. But Christ, ask the question. Ask the question at least, and you'll be amazed what comes back.
Does that kind of go in the same direction as the concept that James talks in his latest book, where he talks about how they debrief after, you know, special operations, special forces, when they go out afterwards, they sit down, debrief, and everybody's allowed to say their piece regardless of their rank within the organization. They can say, hey, you fucked up on this, in a totally kind of objective, or not, it is subjective, but at the end of the day, it's an ego-less kind of environment where everybody can say their piece. Even the water guy can come in and actually say what he thinks. Is that what it looks like for you in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Like crack open a beer after the game and just talk. You know, like, and just, you know, oh, that was crap. This, you know, being able to pull each other up on stuff. This is, you know, again, you've got to nurture an environment to get to there. You know, people call people out of frustration when actually, you know, then you create what's like a mirroring. You know, an angry person will mirror with anger back, and what you need to create is a disarming environment. If someone's hot-headed, you just meet them with love, and I say that, like, you just meet them openly with it, and they'll just calm. So, you know, you can do that after a game over a pint. You can do it on a Monday morning, when most debriefs are, what do we do right and what do we do wrong? No, what happened? That's the question you want. What happened on the weekend? And then you can start going through it. It's like, well, shit, I fucking didn't take the bins out, and my missus went mental at me before I had to leave. So I was thinking about her in the car, and she calls me, telling me off. Like, oh, do you know what I mean? Then the whole bigger picture, because people that play sport are not just robots that fit into an environment; they have lives. And then that's how you debrief. You bring it all together. You bring the whole thing together. And if you've got big groups, you can create micro groups. And, within that, and then they have an open forum to say whatever they want. You create a safe place and you remove all fear of expressing your opinion. Because what a lot of people will do, and we talked about it before, it's like you've got to worry what they say on a fucking podcast, for crying out loud, in protection of their job. Imagine if you say that the head coach, like, you put this strategy in place for us to play, and I just don't think it worked. Well, how do you know? Well, we actually lost. But I don't. But I don't think. Well, I'd love to know an environment where a head coach could be spoke to like that and questioned openly, calmly, objectively, from a point of view where we're all going in the same direction. And I think what the special forces ultimately, if it goes wrong, people die. In rugby or in team sports, the problem that it creates is that people think it's life or death. It's just the game.
Yeah, and going back
it's
to
just
your
the
point,
game, and you get to go.
Yeah, you're saying, sorry.
No, I just say it's just the game, and you get to go home after it.
Right, and hence your comment before about trying to humanize the organization, making it about every single person and human within the organization, with everything, all the baggage that you bring as a person. You're not a robot. You have emotions. You have good days. You have bad days. And if we can be open about this, then it'll probably be better for everybody.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And like I say, I'm massive into the personal development stuff as well. And like a staggering statistic is, I don't want to go too dark on it, but like 75% of all suicides are men. You wonder why? You wonder why. And then you think about these team sport environments that we live in. Fuck, you can't even tell people you're tired. Do you know what I mean? Let alone you're having a bad day. Now, I used to, when I was at Ealing, I did it with my weights group. I would talk to the lads in the morning. Like, morning, guys. Hey, always say good morning, smile on your face. How you doing? Yeah, I'm doing all right. And then one day I was having a bad day, and I was like, lads, I'm fucked here. I'm really tired. I had a shit night's sleep. I don't feel great. And I remember I had a girlfriend at the time, and we had a massive bust up. It was a fucking massive bust up with my missus. And so basically I went out and got too drunk on the weekend. I remember this so clear. And I'd gone in on the Monday, and it was like the install day, and I had my group of players. And then we just ended up talking about it whilst we were doing the weight session. And then it was awesome. It was like, because you humanize the environment. And this is where, like, I'm a big believer is I don't just say these things as ideas. I've done them. I've tested them. I've done them. And then a couple of days later, you got the lads going, oh, did you sort things out with your girlfriend? Are you all right? How's it all going? And then that's when you've made the breakthrough, because they actually know that you have a life. They have a life. You respect that. And, I think that's the missing ingredient of coaching at the elite level. It's not a 5-man line out or a restart strategy. It's all the soft stuff. It's all the soft stuff, which is actually really the hard stuff.
The stuff, yeah, that really kind of matters and makes a difference in the end. What currently, maybe if we don't count the points that you mentioned so far in the interview, what currently fascinates you in the strength and conditioning field?
Oh God. Basically, I'm just trying to figure out how to do less all the time. Pretty much. I'm really trying to figure out how to do less. And like, because it's economics. If I'm trying to prepare an athlete, like, the less time they're with me, the better. The less time they're with me, the better. And there's a story where it's kind of like a modern day fable, but in central Minnesota is where FedEx headquarters is, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And one day over Christmas, the conveyor belt system broke. And they couldn't get the packages out over Christmas. So they called up an engineer who was on Christmas holiday, and he came in, and he opened up this box and he 1/4 inch of the screw. It all started working again.
Yeah.
Went into the office to write the invoice. $10,000. The guy was like, "What?" He's like, "Can you itemize that invoice for me?" He was like, "Yeah, give me a piece of paper." 1/4 inch turn on the screw, $1. Knowing which screw to turn, $9,999. So for me, that's what fascinates me about it, because I'm gonna be able to create more by knowing the least amount of stuff we need to do.
It reminds me of Dan Pfaff talking about finding the poison in what you see when somebody's sprinting and finding the one root cause of all the problems, not trying to say, oh, his knee doesn't go high enough on his stride, so you need to, his hip flexor is too weak. Actually looking at it holistically and finding the one, I guess, quarter turn of a screw that's actually going to fix everything and get you to the next level without having to spend massive amounts of energy and time doing things left and right in isolation that might in the end not even be the actual problem.
Yeah, it's a massive process of elimination. Like, I have no problem telling people that I don't want to be in the gym. I don't want my athletes working hard. I don't. Like, and it's all the stereotypical things that you expect of a strength and conditioning coach. Just flip them on their head, because that's what we should be. That's what we should be. And like, I want my guys to bounce into it fresh. That's it. I don't need them to be tired. That's really easy to do. It's really easy to do. I want to get them better.
Right. Sam, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. I want you to talk just for a minute about the coaching mentorship program that you're running right now and that you're opening up. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. So basically I've had interns and stuff that over the last, my coaching career. And the more and more, I started talking about my own personal experiences, and when I started moving into all the education and seminar stuff, I got a lot of questions, and coaches would ask me all these questions, and not just about physical preparation, but mental preparation. And, I'm very open about my experiences and stuff, because so what I decided to do, rather than helping individuals, is to put a mentorship program together, which is an initial 3-month intensive mentorship program, of which they get 12 lectures over 12 weeks, and they get 12 phone calls with me, group phone calls. There's tasks and there's homework, and there's like this whole accountability system within it. And when I did my first I don't publicly advertise it too much, just because I'm a big believer in you seek out what you find. And so, I put a couple of messages out, small on Instagram, and then all of a sudden these people popped up, and then I spoke to them on the phone, and I asked the question, like, in a perfect world, what does it look like for you? And it's amazing what comes up, because when these coaches start talking, these men start talking about these things that they want to achieve, and how they create such a disconnect between being a coach and being a bloke or being a person. So we do a lot of personal development stuff within it, and understanding who you are to be what you need to be for the people in your life. But then we also deep dive into speed, power, conditioning, rehab. Like, we do a whole mix, pre-season planning, and then we jump on these calls every Wednesday at the moment, and we just have at it. We have this open forum where guys are just ripping loose, and chucking in. And so it's been one of the most enriching experiences of me as a coach, being able to help these guys get there. Because some of the stories that these guys have been doing is just so cool. It's just so good. And they what they do is they make you realize, and everyone makes each other realize, that being a coach is not about what you know, it's about who you are. And that's a huge gap, and that's something that I'm trying to help and address people. So if people want to know when that is coming out, reopening for sign up, it's probably going to open up in the next 6 weeks, and they can do that by signing up to my email list, and then I'll notify them when that's out, and I can give you a link for that email list, because like I said, I try not to publicize it too much, because I want the people that are willing to find it to find it, you know.
Well, for all the people that got to the end of that 70-minute conversation, I'm sure they want it enough. So we'll definitely give them the link if they want to find it. Man, it's been a great pleasure chatting with you today. Where can people find you on social if they want to follow you, if they don't do it already?
Yeah, so I mean, at Coach Sportland, on Coach_Sportland on Instagram. My website is coachsportland.co.uk. Email sam@coachsportland.co.uk if you need to reach out. That's probably the best. I'm terrible with DMs, as you'll know. And so, yeah, probably send me an email if you've got any questions or anything, and I'm more than happy to share my experiences. So I really appreciate having you on and connecting with you properly, man.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure, man. Take care. Have a great day.
Nice one.